Hey guys, so welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you a tour of my grad collection. I know you guys have been asking for this for a while and I know it's a little bit late, but better late than never. Hopefully this video is helpful for anyone who is wanting to study fashion design or is studying fashion design or just wants to know a little bit more about it. And also, in order to make the video less boring, I'm just going to cut it up into two parts. So the first part, I'll just show you guys my garments and talk a little bit about the process, the details and whatever. And the second part, I will be answering all of your questions that you guys had in specific to my collection. So before we continue on with the video, I would just like to give a quick shout out to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. For those of you who don't know, Skillshare is an online learning community where millions of people come together to take the next step in their creative journey. Skillshare offers a ton of different classes on different topics, including photography, graphic design, film, and even offers classes that help out with lifestyle and productivity. I personally think Skillshare is great for creatives like me who want to continue their learning outside of uni and really expand my creative skill set. So a class that I've been taking is Productivity for Creatives by Thomas Frank. I've been struggling a little bit to manage my time across YouTube and my job as well as my social life, so I found his classes really helpful, especially the one on efficiency and effectiveness. He just talks about how to distribute your energy across the projects effectively and efficiently. So for the first 1,000 subscribers to click the link in my description box below, we'll be able to get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So if you're interested, make sure to check that out and let's get on with the video. So I'm just going to jump straight into it. The first thing is my concept. I will put a little picture of my mood board here. I think a lot of you guys wanted to see that. So about my concept, it was inspired by my dad and he works in the automotive industry, so a lot of my collection took inspiration from car interiors, exteriors, textiles and fabrics. For the first outfit, I created a top and a pant set, but I will talk about the top first. So this is my airbag top slash vest. It was actually the last garment that I made in my collection right before the runway because I had to quickly make a top to go with my pants. Basically what happened was I originally had a different top for those pants, but in the first panel, so the first presentation, everyone kind of hated it. I ended up hating it, so I scrapped that top. So this came last, but in the end I thought it was a much stronger piece, so I'm glad I chose to do that. The inspo behind this was the fabric. I just wanted to create a top that incorporated the details of the original airbag, which are these cutouts here, and I just draped that onto a mannequin to find the right placement of the cutouts so that it flattered the body. Just a couple processes that I went through. I had to restitch all of these decorative stitches because I didn't like the original color of the thread, so basically I unpicked everything and then I went over with this contrast red stitching. Same with it on the back. I also added some pop rivets for the openings of the vest, and I also have an opening at the shoulder so it's just easier to get in and out of. And I finished the edges with a binding. It was quite difficult to do this because this was a cutout here. So these are the matching pants. These are my race panel pants. I was inspired by the racetrack and I try to incorporate that through the panel lines. The fabric is I'm pretty sure this was a nylon. I think it took me around 2 weeks to finish it. It just took a couple twirls to get the right shape because I wanted it to be tight at the top up until the knee and then flare out at the hemline. I think it took like 3 twirls to get the right shape, and then the final twirl I was just figuring out the panel lines, which I did by putting the sample on a mannequin and then I drew out the panel lines with a pencil and then I cut out all the panel lines to make the patterns. Another thing, it has these mesh panel inserts. You probably would have seen in my first vlog that I was struggling to find mesh fabric. I ended up using laundry bags for the mesh because I didn't end up finding any in the fabric stores. So a couple of details I want to show is the panel lines. You probably can't see them on camera, but you'll be able to see in the photos. And then I have finished it with a invisible zip at the back and just a little facing on the inside to finish that top edge there. And then the hemline, I just double rolled it and stitched that down. Okay, moving on. My next look is my car seat jacket set. This outfit was all inspired by the shapes and panel lines you would see on car seats, and I incorporated that mostly into the jacket. There's my car seat jacket. It's a very thick warm jacket. It's got wadding inside inside, and the outer fabric is a acrylic coated polyester. Honestly, I think this jacket took me around a month from start to finish. It took me a long time because one, I had never made a jacket like this before. Two, it has a lot of panel lines, and I struggled a lot with the fabric as well because it was quite thick. It was just very hard for me to maneuver. The process was finding the original fit, which I had my tutors help me out with. So we actually had sessions that we could use where our tutors / garment technicians can make garments for us or help us out with patterns to outsource the work. So I outsourced the original base of the pattern to my tutor, but when I tried it on, I didn't really like the fit. It was just a bit too small, so I adjusted it to be a lot larger and a lot baggier, and then from there I went in and I added the details and changed the patterns in order to get all these panel lines, you know, the pockets, like cutouts. So I'll show you a couple of details on this garment. You can see we have some inseam pockets here, a lot of panel work with contrast top stitchings. So on the back we have this yoke, which is like a panel, and another decorative panel here, which was inspired by, again, the shapes that you can see on car seats. This hood here is also detachable by the zip, so you can zip it off, zip it on. On the sleeves we have a cutout here, and then on the wrist we also just have this little wrist strap, and I also have the reflective piping all throughout the jacket. The funny thing is, originally the design of the hood, it was supposed to be the dark grey on the outside. I realized that I sewed the wrong color panels after I had finished the garment, so I had to just roll with it, but it doesn't really bother me anymore. It did bother me so much in the beginning, and I was so tempted to just make the whole hoodie again, but it wasn't really realistic for me to do that anymore. I just had no time. Alright, so moving on to the pants. Again, plays on those panels. I also added the mesh onto the light grey, and it also has the reflective piping throughout. The pants took me a lot less time than the jacket. Probably took me around 2.5 weeks to get this done. I outsourced the base pattern of the pants, so I got my tutor to make the base from my design sketch. From there I went in and I created all these panel lines, like I drew them on and I calculated everything to make new patterns for all these separate pattern pieces, and then I'm pretty sure I twirled one leg just to see how I could line things up, because I wanted to make sure that all the panels lined up at the side seam here. And again, a lot of top stitching. I basically double stitched every seam all across these panel lines. I folded the seam allowance and then I double stitched on top of that. I remember having to adjust the pattern for this because I created a pattern without thinking about the length of the zip, and then when it came to putting in the zip, there was no zip that was short enough for the pattern that I had made, so I had to redo the zip part. But basically, before you do anything, even jackets, make sure you know how long you want your zip to be and then make the design around that, because you don't want to be trying to fit in your zip after. And the last piece of this look is this neck pillow and accessory piece. So this goes all together. So I was inspired by, again, the neck pillow, and then these accessory pieces, I was inspired by those. I'll have a picture again, but it is a airbag that like goes across your chest. I put it together to make this accessory piece. So you just like wear it like this, and then I have this strap, which is the webbing strap where you can tie it around the waist and hold it secure, I guess. I had never made a pillow before, so a lot of my collection was a first time. So I feel like that's why every process took a lot longer than I planned it to be. I incorporated the same panel work onto the accessory piece. So yeah, you can see it there in the mesh panels. Okay, so my third look is my crinkle top and short set. This was basically inspired by the airbag textiles that I'd sourced. I wanted to recreate that look myself, so this is the result of that. I'm pretty sure this fabric was a polyester, maybe with a mix of cotton. A lot of experimentation went into this process because I had to figure out how to get this crinkle texture. So what I did was I got a sample piece of this fabric and I drenched it into water, then scrunched it up, put it in the microwave for 2 to 3 minutes, which allowed me to get this crinkle texture. I had to calculate how much the shrinkage was as well. So Once I had calculated the shrinkage, I went on to the final one. Yeah, so again, originally these were a lot larger patterns, but they shrunk in the microwaves. I'll show you a couple of the details that are on the garments. Again, as I said before, I was inspired by the shapes that you can see in the airbags. So there's like a square cut out here, a circle cut out here, and same with on the pants. We've got the cutouts on the flaps of the pockets, as well as the bottom of the pants. We've got another hole here, as well as the shapes of the flaps. A lot of the airbags had these sort of flaps, and another decorative finish that I added was also these metal studs. I also had a matching hat for the set, so it is this Legionnaire cap. It was my first time making a cap as well. I was inspired to make this cap because of this little chute. So this is an airbag chute, and you'll see what airbag was in it. So it was these pants here. I was really trying to use all the waist. The base of the hat, I'm pretty sure it was again a polyester or a nylon, and it's just this navy blue color. I went to Daiso to get a brim, and then I pattern made the base of the head and this flat piece as well. As for the details, again I went with the contrast top stitching, and I added some eyelets to the side of the cap, as well as this tab where you can hook like keys or chains onto it. The little chute has nice organic details here. I also redid the stitching. I went over with a blue and then a black thread to create these shapes. So moving on to the next garment, I have my airbag jacket. This jacket is made from 15 to 20 different airbags. My dad went through so much manual labor to source all of these airbags for me. He had to physically rip out the fabric. So as you can see, I don't know if it's going to fit into the frame. You'll be able to see in the photo, my sole focus on this was to really just emphasize the organic details of the airbags and just incorporate them through the garment. For the process, I basically had an idea of the panels, which were inspired by the aerial view of like trucks. I had to deconstruct all of the airbags because they do come like double layered. So I cut through every single airbag, laid them all out on like 4 different tables to be able to see what I could work with. And then from there, I folded the airbags into the different panels to figure out where I wanted to place each one. So we have like a different lining fabric on the inside, and then I tried to finish the edge of the lining with just a binding, and I burned some of the edges so we could prevent the fraying. This jacket also took me quite a while, probably over a month from the start to finish, because I was having to organize all my airbags, what I could use, where I could place them. I also finished the jacket with double top stitching everywhere. I had to do that because the seams were getting really bulky. That was my airbag jacket. Finally, we are on to the last outfit, and that is my tire vest, airbag pant, and my airbag tote bag. I'll start with my tire vest first. So here she is. You can probably figure out what I was inspired by. I was inspired by tires, and basically I wanted to create an effect where it looked like you were just wearing a tire on your body. I tried to really achieve that with the shape and the silhouette here. It took me not too long to figure out the shape. It was more so the quilting part that was very time consuming. I created a stencil so that I could draw out the design with a chalk, and then I went over that straight on the machine. And what I did was I flipped it, and I've used the other side as the top of the design. And then on the back, I didn't carry the same tie design. I wanted to make it a little bit more simple, so it looks like just kind of like track lines. I think this one took me about 2 weeks. It was just the quilting part that took a while. I also ran out of fabric at the end, so I didn't have enough to finish off the binding. So the binding is a separate black binding. Originally, I was thinking of putting a zip in the middle as a closure, but I figured that it just looks a lot more cleaner and achieves the tire look more without a fixture. And then this was just a ribbed tank top underneath for a supporting garment. I'm pretty sure this fabric was like a memory nylon. The next garment is my airbag pants, and these I paired with my tire vest for the runway. So the body part here is actually the airbag that was stored in the little chutes of this cap. So you can see why it's all pleated, because it was all compressed and folded into that chute. These airbags are different to the ones on the jacket, because the jacket, they all come from the steering wheel, like the front of the car, and this was from the side of the car. I only had 2 of these, so I knew that I wanted to make a pair of pants out of it. I had to really problem solve with how I was going to place my patterns. I knew I wasn't going to have enough fabric for the leg, so I had to calculate the leg width that I wanted and then figure out what I was missing, and then I put in the memory nylon fabric that I used for my tie vest into the pants as panels, and I also used it for the waistband. So the airbag already has a lot of interesting details on it. One of the details is that it's already pleated, and there are these black lines that are printed here like a little grid, and I tried to make sure that they were symmetrical and made sure that it lined up from here and the seam line down to the bottom. There was also these little flaps, yeah, as well as the hemline here. You can see all these tabs and these cutouts. What I had to do with the panel was I sewed it inside out so that the details could be on the outside. And another detail, you can see that there's a lot of heat pressed printing on here. So there's numbers and there's also shapes, but it is very hard to see if you're not seeing it in real life. The zip was a little bit harder for these pants just because the fabric I was working with was quite thick. It's not a fabric that I could iron, so I had to really just work with stitching things down instead of ironing things. Finally, we are onto our last piece of the collection, which is my airbag tote. This airbag, it was kind of like an odd one out of my pile of airbags, and I really wanted to use it because I knew I could fit it in somewhere into my collection, and I decided that my last look needed an accessory piece just to elevate the look altogether. I wasn't happy with the original thread color, so I actually unpicked it all again and restitched it with this contrast red thread, and it also has lining in the bag so that it's actually functional and things aren't falling out of the hole. That was it for the first part of the video. I will be filming part 2, which is answering your questions that you had specific to this grad collection, so stay tuned for that. I shall see you guys in part 2 of this video. Why does this wrap not look straight to me? I think that's straight.